Well, let's see here. Oh, it looks like it's working. Hooray, hooray. At least I hope it's working. Yes, it's working. All right. So here we are at beautiful La Bataille de Ligny. We've completed the 420 turn, I believe, and even I think the 440 turn, yes. Um, where are we at time wise? Yeah, we're at the 440 turn. So um, we haven't had a chance to play for the last couple of weeks because we've had holidays and we had college football last week, and then this week we've got, I guess, the Dallas Cowboys are playing, and so one of our colleagues lives in Dallas and is a Cowboys fan, and one of our other players is a Dallas fan since at least I've known him, which was since high school, and so they're watching the Dallas Cowboys game. And apparently, the Cowboys are doing well. They were up 18 at the 18 to 0 at the halftime. So hopefully, those gentlemen, their team will win and they will be happy. But in the meantime, I thought I could show a little bit of what's going on here and see if there's anybody on who might have questions about the game or the game system or La Bataille or the rules or anything like that. And if so, you are welcome to post questions in the chat, and I will then do my best to answer them for you, and then kind of carry on with explaining where things are. So, first of all, when we're looking at the game as it currently stands, things are going to be a lot different from what you might see if you were actually watching this game or playing this game using the 5th edition rules or the Marie Louise rules or the rules from the Regs 30. Those rules are all going to have command control elements that are going to really impede the freedom of movement, particularly for the Prussians, and to a lesser extent the French. And so where things are, hello Joe, good evening to you as well. I'm going to hopefully make it an engaging live stream. If you've got questions about La Bataille, by all means, go ahead and write any of them up here for you. Tonight, we're not actually going to be playing because we've got a couple of our players are watching the professional football game that's going on right now. And so this is just an overview of where the Ligny game is that we've been playing for the last several months, where it's at, and then a chance for folks to ask questions and for me to do a little answering. So question and answer time. So as I was saying earlier, because we're using the premier rules, which do not have the command control element of units needing to be within a certain proximity to their divisional commander, and divisional commanders needing to be within a certain proximity of their corps commanders, and corps commanders being in a certain proximity of their army commanders, we've got more Prussians engaged than would happen if you were using a different rule set. And so as a result, we're seeing elements of the Prussian army that are involved that normally would be sitting off on the sidelines or engaging piecemeal. So, for example, we've got most of the Prussian First Corps starts off here in the Seine-et-Marne area, along here by the Moulin de Bussy, and in Ligny. And then the Second Prussian Corps is kind of deployed along the road here behind it as a type of reserve that Blücher called upon. Now, further to the east, the Third Corps under Thielman was kind of over in this bend of the river, or I should say of the stream here, the Ligny Creek, and as a result, when you're playing with the game and you've got a limited number of command points, and because the Third Corps is so far away from where Blucher is, you're never going to get a corps activation. Usually on this side of the battlefield, you might have some light cavalry jousting with each other, and maybe you might get the Prussians pushing a division across the creek, and that's pretty much the only thing that's kind of happening over here. Now, because we're using the third edition rules, the Prussians have pulled the entire Third Corps over, and now they've been moving them in here to kind of back up behind Ligny as reserves, and they're sending some over here towards Brie. So it's one of those things where there's more Prussians that the French have to fight than they usually would if you were playing with the 5th edition rules. So this is where, depending on the rule set you have, you're going to get some different results. Now, on the same stroke, the French are able to maneuver out on a wider flank than they would have been otherwise. So here we've got French way out here, west of Wagenly, and we've got stuff spread out rather considerably. And so we're taking advantage as best we can of the rule set in order to give the French some advantage as well. So this is kind of the situation where things are at this particular juncture in the game. I believe the 5 o'clock turn, the French are going to be getting Lebau's corps coming in south of Ligny, and I think we're going to kind of send it over to the Ligny area to back up the corps that's over there that's getting beaten up a little bit. Let me take a look here in our comments and see what we've got up. So welcome, William, and Joe, and I think Ig Sikralaklo. I can't pronounce your moniker, but I want to say your name is like Steve or something. It's something really simple, and yet you've got this weird name there. Good evening. Okay, so you're writing, just purchased 5th edition rules. How do they compare with the other rule sets available? So, the 5th edition rules are a hybrid of the old 3rd edition rules that Clash of Arms had put out, and if you get any of their games, basically from the late 80s through to the mid 90s, they all had the 3rd edition rule set. Iggy Crittle. Okay, thank you for giving me the pronunciation there. So the 3rd edition rules were very popular, used for a long time. They were very simple and pretty easy for people to use. They had a couple of elements that made it a lot of fun. They had the charge phase that happened, and then charge results. So combat and fire, defensive fire against the charge, all of that was conducted in sort of a charge phase that then happened before the movement phase. So this allowed you as the player, if you're going to do a charge, you would do a charge, and then it would result in, maybe a breakthrough somewhere along the line. And then your infantry could then move forward to support or to exploit that breakthrough. And it still had the French go, then the Allies go, then the French go, and the Allies go. So it still had that back and forth element to it. With the 5th edition rules, what it did was it started to add a command control element to the game system, which was something that when Clash of Arms first put out Quatre Bras, Mont Saint-Jean, and Ligny, they added some elements of command control. So you had to be within a certain range of Napoleon in the corps leaders had to be a certain range of him, and then the division leaders had to be a certain range. It was kind of a clunky command control system, but it was at least something. But with the fifth edition, they have that element to it that's better, that had been sort of integrated with some of the Marie Louise stuff. They added the sort of rolling to close or declaring the assault during the movement phase, which was something that also part of the regs and Marie Louise. And then they also had the element of the chit pull. So you would then mark the maneuver units. You would have a certain number of command points, which you would use to assign those to divisions or corps or brigades. And so those are then the only ones that you can move. So it kind of limits what you can do. And so it's a nice hybrid of those systems with the old third edition rules. So it tends to play fairly well. It tends to play fairly quickly for a team event or for an event that's at a con. They're nice because once you draw whatever nationality chit comes up first, then all of their maneuver units are executed at the same time. So if you're playing a team game, when the first French chit comes up, then all the French players who've got a maneuver unit on the map then are going to do them at that time. And then the next time an Allied player comes up, it's going to be the same thing. The whole Allied team goes. You do get the opportunity for maybe a double move where, the French were the second to go in a turn, and then they get drawn first the following turn. So you can sometimes get back-to-back turns, which can be particularly devastating. But that's kind of what's up with that, and that's kind of what the fifth edition is. It's that third edition rule set with some of the command control and chit pull stuff that was added later. Let's see what else we've got here. Oh, we've got football versus war games. I used to tell my fellow soldiers the only true sport is war. Oh. Well, that would be nice. This is one of the challenge of having these online games and having multiplayers is trying to get all the players there at the same time. During COVID, when we played our 6-player game of Moscow, we didn't have too many other distractions because there wasn't much going on. A lot of stuff was still shut down, and everyone was quite content to be at home and able to play. So we made a lot of progress through a 6-player Vassal game using Discord as our communication system during that time period. And so that worked fairly well. And we did a 5-player game of Dresden, which went fairly well. And then I've got this group of gentlemen that we've been doing. Earlier in 2022, we did Aspirin Esling, and then now we've been working on Ligny for several months now. So we'll see how this goes. After a while, sometimes people kind of lose interest in it, or maybe there's a decision. I mean, it looks like the writing's on the wall one way or the other, and people are then willing to maybe go on to another game. I'm looking to possibly organize a Vassal game of Austerlitz, and so that might be starting sometime here in February. So I've got a couple of people that were interested in doing that, and so I've got to try to schedule that, in which case then we'll probably be playing with the 5th edition rules because a bunch of the guys are going to be going to conventions and want to be able to play 5th edition and have a better sense of how that works. Let's see. Glad to see we have similar tastes. Okay, this is William here. Haven't been able to reach out after the holidays. Okay, so your wife got sick. Sorry to hear that, William. Let's see. Which rule set comes with Contrabas? I've read the rules over and over, and I can't see where it states which rule set it represents. So, if you were to get the 1st edition Contrabas, that would have had the 3rd edition rules. The 2nd edition of Contrabas, which was published in the late 1990s, early 2000s, is one of the sets that has the elements of the regs of the year 23 all in one book. They basically had the scenario and the rules and everything all in one booklet. So unlike most Clash of Arms La Bataille games, you'd have a rule book, a standard rule book, and then you'd have your scenario booklet. The QB2 had everything all in just one book, and it's using the Regs 23, which in my opinion I did not like that much, um, and as a result, it's got those different elements to it. Now, if you don't want to use the rules that are in the book, or whether it's an older set, third edition rules, or premier rules from the 80s or 70s, there is at the labataille.us website. There's a couple of people have done a fantastic job coming up with updates for all of the old games on how you can use more modern rule sets to play them. So whether you're using the Regs 30 or Marie Louise or even 5th edition, you could go there and then you can find information on, the command structure, which a lot of the old games didn't have. And they'll give you information on, okay, you're probably going to need to add some additional leaders, particularly for your cavalry brigades and stuff like that. So that's a great resource for kind of having an up-to-date rule set. But that's what's up with Quatre Bras. It has a unique rule set. QB2 has a unique rule set. So does Lutzen, and who else came out during that time period with it? I think Orthez has its own rule set using the same kind of Regs 23, all folded in. If you don't want to use those, you can play with any other rule set. But I know there were a few that during that time period came out and had this one rule set that was incorporated in with everything. Hopefully that answered your question. Let's see here. James writes, Steve writes, the various rule sets can be confusing. I've been using the original Premier rules since 1975, and they are manageable. I do respect the others who want command and more details. So I had never played. I mean, I think I played whatever the Premier rules that were in the 1984 edition of Auerstadt that I got from Clash of Arms. I never had any of the Marshall Enterprise games, early first edition games from the 70s and early 80s. So I only started with the Clash of Arms stuff, and so that was the one I was most familiar with. Now, for the last 6 years or so, I've been helping the Marshall Enterprise guys play test their new games, and as a result, then I've gotten very, familiar with the newer Premier rules that Marshall Enterprise is using for basically the new set of games that they put out here over the course of the last, not quite a decade yet. And there's been a lot of modifications and updates to those, which has been nice because when I first started working with them on the rule set, this would have been back in 2016. There was lots of problems with things were not clear. The stuff didn't make sense. And so over time, they have made modifications, which has been really good to kind of keep the rule set alive. And so it's gotten better and better and better. So you can find that on the Marshall Enterprise website, you can find the new Premier rules, and or if you've bought any of their more recent publications, that's normally included in either the disc or it's included when you download the rules and the scenario stuff. But you can download a game, and that's pretty good. And I do like a lot of elements of that. It doesn't have the command control, which is a bit of a bother sometimes, where you get stuff that's not really historical. But if you're looking for a fun and faster playing game, then the Premier rules are a good bet for that. Let's see. Iggy Critty, or I'm going to call you that here. Do you have a favorite rule set? The answer is yes. The one that I'm liking and have played with a fair amount is the 5th edition rules. Now, it does have some issues because there's a lot of just stuff that got cut and paste right out of the 3rd edition. And so there's times that you're reading through stuff and you're like, okay, there seems to be a gap here. It doesn't explain this particular strange result from a combat or a retreat before combat or whatever. And so there's some stuff that you have to kind of go, okay, this is how we're going to play it, or this is the thing that most makes sense. So it doesn't cover everything in great detail. So there are some gaps that are going to arise potentially when you're playing a game. And that's going to happen with a number of rule sets. And you and whoever you're playing with just kind of need to figure it out. But I really love the 3rd edition rules. I played those for years and years and years, all through the 80s and the 90s. And so this one has a lot of the elements of the 3rd edition rules that I really liked, but then it's got the command control stuff that I think adds a different dimension to the games, and I think is well worthwhile. So 5th edition rules currently my favorite, and then my second favorite would be the current premier rules from Marshall. So that's that little question there. Let's see here. If one is playing solitaire, are they missing out on any significant playing experience by just sticking with the ML rules? I would say no. I would say if you're going to be playing solitaire, and I mentioned this in some other, I did a video a number of years ago kind of looking at the different rule sets. I would play with the Marie Louise rules or with the regs because of the chit pull mechanism and the fact that you're playing everybody. So it's not as if you're sitting around twiddling your thumbs waiting for your chit to get pulled. It adds a certain amount of chaos. It adds a certain amount of surprise to the game. So for a solitaire game, I don't think Premier is the way to go because it doesn't have the same flow to it. It's just you go and then the other guy goes back and forth, back and forth. Having the chit pull mechanism is going to add some randomness to it that makes the solitaire game more appealing. So whether it's Marie Louise or the Regs 30 for solitaire, those are really two good rule sets because they have that element to them. You could play it with 5th edition rules, but Marie Louise and Regs are probably the best for solitaire play or solo play. So you're not missing anything at all in that regard. Let's see, those early Marshall rules were written in fractured franglis. Yes. Yeah, I mean, and there were plenty of times that, of course, I'm playing this in high school, and I'd taken French in junior high and high school, and so I'm sure we butchered a lot of what we were saying anyway. And it is what it is. I know that the Marshall guys still use some of those different things, where even in the order of battle, sometimes they'll have stuff written in French or they'll have stuff written in German, and you've got to try to figure out what unit is this referring to, and they're using the numbering system, or for that either German or French. So they have a little bit of fun with it. I don't think it's a terrible thing. It was kind of cute back in the day. I suppose if somebody's feeling terribly sensitive about the whole matter, they might not like it, but I don't know that anyone like that's doing that. Let's see. Steve writes, do you own all the La Bataille games? Any specific titles that you are looking for? So, currently, I own everything that has been published by Clash of Arms Games, and I own everything that Marshall Enterprise has put out, basically in the last decade. So I don't have, as I said, I don't have anything from Marshall from the 70s or early 80s. But once they started redoing things, they did Leipzig, they did Friedland, they did Aspern-Essling, they've done Austerlitz. What else? The Prussian battles, Wagram, Bautzen, um, uh, the battles of Berlin. So that's going to be Grossbeeren and Dennewitz, and then they just put out Heilsberg. So I've got all of those, and I have not played the Leipzig. I haven't played Leipzig. I haven't punched it. Um, I do have, and there's some talk that if we were going to do a game at a con, we might try to put together a game of Leipzig. So I have to see what when or how I could organize that. I did play Friedland at a convention a couple of years ago, and so that was a fun game. Um, but yeah, that's what I've got. So I've got everything that Clash of Arms has put out because I've always followed them at least, and got their stuff. But then I didn't realize that Marshall Enterprises was back to publishing things until they came out with Austerlitz, and then I went back and tried to get copies of their previous stuff. So let's see, are there any particular titles that I'm looking for? So no, there aren't any that I'm missing. I'm not really interested in getting into the old ones. It's not like I'm interested in collecting, the first edition of Wagram or the first edition of Austerlitz. Um, so currently, I've got everything that I need, and then I do have some of the different games. Like I do have Beauchamp that was out in Against the Odds magazine. I guess there's some word that Against the Odds is going to be publishing the Battle of Combe. So we'll see when that comes out, and I'll try to get a copy of that as well. Let's see here. William writes, looks like I'm going to have to learn to play on solitaire and on Vassal to deal with these shut-in situations. So, William, I welcome to Vassal. Um, I would say, I mean, when I tried Vassal, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought it was terrible. It took me like 30 seconds to do what would take me 2 seconds with tweezers. And then when the pandemic hit, my friend Albert, he said, "Oh, come on, let's try a game on Vassal." And so started doing some stuff with it. Was a little frustrated at first, but then started to realize, oh yeah, this works really well. Um, it doesn't have any sort of AI. It doesn't have anything that's going to, force you to get your counter in the right place or whatever. It's basically like having the map and the counters at home. So anything that you could do with a map and counter at home, you can do here. The problem is that, for someone who's used to using your fingers or your tweezers to flip the counters or to look at something really quick, this takes a little bit of time to learn some of the commands to get the counters to flip and figure out how to separate them and do some things like that. But it allows you then to play with people all over the world. So if any of you guys have been following our various and sundry live streams, one of our players is out in South Carolina. A bunch of the guys that I've played with are in Dallas. I'm here in Southern California. And so the ability for us to all get together and play and chat with each other. And so we use Discord, but there for a while, Albert and I were using Skype. So if it's just you and another person, you can use Skype or some other type of interface. But for a larger group, of people, 3 or 4 or 5, 6 people, Discord works really well because then you can go out into little breakout rooms, and then I'm dealing with just this other fellow who's sitting opposite me, dealing with say the center, and somebody else is over on the left wing and somebody's over on the right wing, and they can all converse with their counterpart. So we're not all talking over each other as we're rolling the dice and applying hits and things like that. So Discord's worked really well for that, and And the fact, I mean, we were able to do a 6-player game of Moscow on Vassal using Discord. I mean, it was fantastic, and you couldn't have done that without this sort of technology. But Vassal is going to take a little bit of getting used to, but I've been really pleased with it, and the ability to play the game live with somebody else. You're moving your counters, and you can see it, and they can see it too. And when they're moving their counters and rolling the dice, it's all right there. It's as if you're sitting there with the other person, so it's pretty cool. Um, and so, if you guys haven't done so already, we do have a Bataille Discord server. I'm going to put a link up here in the chat, so you can actually. It's an invite to join the Discord server, and you guys can pop on in and join that. And it's fairly active. We get some people that post different rules questions there. There's some folks that will post some after action reports, but mostly it's really great to use the server if you're going to be playing a game with somebody else and you want to have a place where you guys can meet. The Discord server is great in that regard and pretty easy to use. All right, Pete is asking any word on the Vassal module for Mont Saint Jean. So yes, I think it's Kevin Graves who has done some recent Vassal modules for Clash of Arms. He did this one here with it, which is Ligny 2, which he did a beautiful job. We only found, I think, one error with some of the stuff with some of the French counters. He did the Vassal module for Quatre Bras 2, the map and counters, and he's also done it for, I think he did it for the Moskva. I'm not sure. I think somebody else might have done the one for, David Jones did the one for Dresden, which was also a beautiful Vassal module. So it's in the works from what I understand. Usually the way the Vassal modules work is Ed is happy to provide the artwork to the person who's going to put together the module, and usually the Vassal module will come out maybe 9 months to a year after the game was originally published. And that's to kind of give a chance for the game to actually get sold, so people don't just go straight to the Vassal module. But yes, to my understanding, it's in the works. It's being worked on, and so I'm looking forward to it because I think that would be a fun one to do. There is a Vassal module out there right now that uses I think maybe Rick Barber had done a map for the Grognards. And it's basically from Mont Saint Jean all the way across to Wavre. So it's this huge, giant scrolling Vassal module, and the artwork is not very good. I don't like looking at it personally. And so that's the only one that's out there right now. So I'm really looking forward to this one that's being worked on, because it'll have the same aesthetics. It will look like the Ligny 2 and the Quatre Bras 2 maps, encounters, and everything that we have that we're looking at right now. Let's see. E Airman 4 says, "You are good at this." Well, thank you very much, E Airman 4. I will take that as a compliment. William says, "Thanks, looking forward to that. New version. I'll have to check. I'm not sure what that is." Okay, so William writes, "Eric, is there a lot of difference in the game design that Kevin Zucker did for the La Bataille when he was doing the OSG library of Napoleonic series?" So I'm not sure exactly. I know that Kevin Zucker did some games for Clash of Arms. I'm not sure that he was much involved with the La Bataille game system. So um, Larry Groves was the first one who organized it and developed it in the 70s. He did the Moscow game, and he passed away. And then the Marshall Enterprise guys, Monty Matson, Dennis Spores, Jim Soto, they had purchased the rights for the game, or the rights for the game system, from his widow. And then they put out, Auerstadt and Austerlitz and Wagram and some of the others back then. And then they got busy with their lives, and they ended up selling, or Clash of Arms, got a hold of I think the rights. I'm not sure of all the legal gobbledygook, but Clash of Arms then had the rights for the La Bataille system, and then started doing stuff. Reprinted a few of the games that the Marshall guys had actually done, and then put out a whole panoply of games themselves. So I'm not sure how Kevin Zucker, what he did. I know that he did do some games for Clash of Arms, including a version of Napoleon at Leipzig game, which has counter art and things like that, which are very much like La Bataille, but it's not a La Bataille. It's not a La Bataille game. It's a regimental or brigade level type of type of game. And I think there's a few other that he might have done for Clash of Arms, but I don't know that he was involved in the La Bataille system. Let's see, and of course the OSG stuff is a operational level, so it's a different animal. Usually you're looking at divisions or brigades represented by the counters in that level of game. So a different scale entirely, but very interesting. And from with most of Napoleon's stuff, he's winning the battle before the battle starts. The idea is he's able to concentrate his troops. He's able to get to the central point. He's able to sort of capture or get to the critical place with most of his forces, and so therefore that's how the battle is won. And so from an operational scale, that's probably the best one to kind of see, can you do better than Napoleon? Because with a lot of these games, like Ligny or like Wagram or whatnot, I mean, a lot of times it's the case the French are in a much better position, or they outnumber the Allies, or whatever the case is. And so trying to win as the Austrians at like Wagram, come on, give a break. You need to, have a small tactical nuclear weapon drop somewhere to balance things out for you. Let's see. Pete says playing a Zucker game, Clash of Arms Napoleon at Leipzig this weekend. Okay, yeah. So I actually have that game. I played it years ago. I first bought it thinking it was a La Bataille game because the artwork on the back of the box looked just like La Bataille counters. And then we got it and we opened it up and we went, oh, this is not a La Bataille game. But still, it wasn't a bad game. It was just a something different than what we'd done before. Let's see. ID Jester bought my first game, Ligny. What's the best way to learn the game system? What are the best tutorial videos out there? Thanks for any help you can provide. So the nice thing with most of the La Bataille games that have been published here in the last decade or two is that they have some introductory scenarios that are dealing with a smaller area of the battle. So with Ligny, scenario 1 is dealing just with what's going on over here in the Saint Amand area. So it's just dealing with Gerard's division making attacks against these little villages and structures along here. And then the Prussians are feeding in reinforcements. It's only infantry, so you don't have to worry about any of the cavalry rules, and you can get a sense of kind of how the game works. You're not going to need to worry about any grand batteries or anything like that, so you don't have to worry about that. There's limited number of commands. Maybe the French have got one command point, and the Prussians might have one or two. So it's pretty simple game, and that would be a good one to do. I think the second scenario for Ligny is the attack on Ligny itself, and that's also mostly our infantry clashing with each other. The third scenario, off the top of my head, I think was dealing with sort of the cavalry forces over here on the east side, east of Ligny, where you've got some elements of the Prussian Third Corps are clashing with, I think, Pajol's light cavalry over here. So you'll get a little bit of a feeling for the for some of the cavalry rules by playing that one. Similarly, if you get any of the games from Marshall Enterprises, they usually also have, here's a small scenario that deals with just this element of that part of the battle or on that particular area of the battle. And so therefore you don't need to set up the whole thing, the whole map. You can kind of tinker around and learn the basics with that. As far as tutorials, I did, so when Ligny 2 came out, gosh, maybe it's been 4 or 5 years ago, I did a little walkthrough video of Scenario 1. So if you were to look at the playlist on my channel for Ligny, you'll see maybe the review, maybe an overview, and then you'll see, I think I did maybe 3 or 4 turns of Scenario 1, where things are moving and firing and there's assaults and things like that. I might have gotten the rules slightly. I think, I'm pretty sure I at least made one mistake with the rules there, because it was, the 5th edition rules were kind of new to me at that time. But somebody pointed that out after watching after watching my video. I mean, they just pointed out to me maybe 6 months ago, like, I think you made a mistake here. And I'm like, yeah, I think I did make a mistake there. So there's at least one mistake there if you can find it. But that's one place that you could go to kind of get a sense of how the 5th edition rules work and kind of watch that. I kind of animated it, so there's some fire and things like that in it that make it a little bit more interesting than just me moving stuff around with the tweezers. Let's see. All right, so E4 Airman, glad you found this. ID, email you about it. Okay, so you guys might be playing. That would be cool. Pete writes, start with the small scenarios, play, check rules, and repeat. I also recommend Eric's live streams to learn. So yeah, if you're interested in learning the 5th edition rules, you could always watch the live stream we did of the Battle of the Moskva, because that went for quite a while. And then we also did, we used the 5th edition rules for the Dresden game. And there's times that we had some arguments about, the rules and trying to understand the rules. And so you can listen in on that and hear some people getting frustrated as a result. But yeah, that's one way that you learn. And for a lot of times when you're at a convention or you're sitting down and you're playing the game with somebody over the course of a long weekend, you might have a situation of, hey, well, what happens when this happens or that happens? And you're just like, oh, well, that's easy. We will just, you remember, oh yeah, this is how we dealt with it. And so then you remember it because it only happened, an hour or two ago, or it happened the other day. Sometimes with these, we're playing once a week, or sometimes we'll take a break and we'll be absent for a while. And then we forget the rules, even the house rules that we decided we were going to do. Fun stuff. Let's see here. Is it okay to use Discord server to arrange bar games too? The answer is yes. So if you watch my live stream, I've been playing the Battles of the Age of Reason. On Sunday nights, we've been playing the Battle of Brandywine. And so this is my first sort of foray into the Battles of the Age of Reason game series, and I'm really enjoying it. And we use the Discord server, the La Bataille Discord server, for us to communicate when we're playing the game. So that Discord server, anybody can use it. Just be respectful, obviously. But yeah, you guys can pop in and use it. And whether it's a La Bataille game or a bar game, I don't think anybody cares as long as you're getting some value out of it. So hooray! Um, Discord info is asking for question in yellow above. The Discord info for asking questions is in the yellow above. Oh, okay. Yeah. So if you need the link, it's there. Otherwise, you can post something to, um, you know, any of my videos, saying, "Hey, can you send me the Discord invite?" And I will send it to you. The Discord invite's only good for 7 days, so after that, then it expires. So you can just ask for a new one, and I'm happy to do that. Glory and Empire is shipping soon. Are you excited? Yes, I am. I had a great opportunity to chat with Terry Doherty, who is the game designer for that. And if you guys haven't seen that, that's we did that maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago. And so it looks like there's some very interesting elements that he's incorporating into the game, and it looks like the graphics and things like that should be very nice. And it looks like he's covering some games, particularly some of the ones in the peninsula that haven't been touched on in this scale. So I'm looking forward to that, and we'll see what shows up. I know that Lock and Load had contacted me about possibly sending me an early copy of the game so I could do some videos on it. So I will know as soon as I get something, and then try to do a video so that people have a sort of a sneak peek at it. But yeah, it looks like it should be a fun one. All right, Mr. Eric is the best at this I have ever seen. Okay, well, thank you. Let's see. Has an actual date been announced for the release? I'm excited. I presume this is about the Glory and Empire. I don't know. I mean, last I'd heard was that they were going to be sending something out here probably maybe in March or so. I haven't checked the Kickstarter page to see if they've got any dates yet, and I hadn't gotten an email to that effect. I know when Lock and Load had contacted me there before the holidays regarding maybe getting an early release, they were thinking maybe they would do something might have an early copy available sometime in February to send out to a few people for evaluation or for promotion. So I'm not expecting anything necessarily until March or maybe April, depending on how things are going. But I do know that they hit their number for what they were doing. I think they got over 400 people who signed up on their Kickstarter. They didn't use Kickstarter. They used another website for that. I want to say Game Found or something like that. But it's the same idea. So I know that they hit their target. So Clash of Arms Dresden is not a La Bataille game. No, the Clash of Arms La Bataille de Dresden is a La Bataille game. So if you go to the Clash of Arms sales page, you go to Tactical Napoleonics, you'll see that the Dresden game is there. It is a La Bataille game with La Bataille, units and rules. It's the first of the series that uses the 5th edition rules, and it's a lovely game. It's a fun game. It's got some very interesting things because you've got this sort of medieval town that you're attacking, and you've got redoubts, and you've got a really seesaw kind of battle, where the French are on the ropes for a long time, and then the reinforcements start to come in. So it's got some very interesting things, and then of course the 3rd day of the battle, it's pouring rain, and so there's no musketry fire at all. It's just artillery and melee, whether it's cavalry charges or infantry. I mean, it's a wild battle, very interesting game, and of course, it has, I think, the most beautiful La Bataille map ever. Rick Barber just outdid himself with that one. It's my favorite Rick Barber map. So William, Dresden is a La Bataille game, and it's a great one. Steve says, agreed, Eric does a great job as host. It's like sitting around the fire with a group of friends discussing games. Thank you very much, Steve. Very kind of you. James, someone on the Ardwolf stream said it's getting close. Okay, so maybe that is new too. Yeah, I haven't. I don't have any more details regarding Glory and Empire at the moment. All right, Eric, you are certainly more entertaining than the one-sided football game tonight, or for that matter, the one last Monday. Yeah, I don't. I don't follow football, but I mean, the fact that the score was 18-0 at halftime an hour ago seems to indicate, I think, probably the Cowboys are going to go forward. That will make my friend happy. My friend Robert, who usually plays here at Ligny with us. He and I have known each other since high school, and I know he's been a Dallas fan, and so he's like, they haven't been to the Super Bowl in 30 years, so hopefully they'll do well, and they will achieve something. I don't follow any sports. I teach the sport of fencing. I teach the sport of archery. I don't even follow those. I'm more interested in doing the sport than necessarily following the goings on of the other people in the sport. So that's just me. All right. Well, if you guys have any more questions, go ahead and feel free to throw them at me. In the meantime, I'll just kind of take a quick overview of where things are on the battle and kind of let you know kind of the sense of things. So starting over here on the west, my friend David Plock has been handling this side of the French line, and opposite him is my friend Robert, who's playing the Prussians. And you can see that there's a picket of sort of light cavalry and dragoons out here across, east of Ligny. And here in Ligny itself, we've had a seesaw back and forth as the French have tried to expel the Prussians, and then the Prussians have been coming back. So part of the town, I'd say sort of the eastern part of the town, a number of the hexes have been captured. The French did get a couple of people across the creek, but they have been rebuffed at this point. So it's going to be a tough slog here, and the French, this particular, I think they've got two divisions that are engaged over here, and the 12th and the 14th division. I think they're starting to show some damage, and so therefore it will. They'll probably need Lebeau's corps to kind of come in and help them. It's one of the victory conditions is to capture Ligny, and so that's just going to take some time to do. Now here in the center, the Prussians had set up just a huge, phalanx of artillery. They've got all this unlimbered artillery out here. They've got a bunch of cavalry to kind of support it. And so as a result, we, the French players, have been reluctant to go, into the teeth of all those guns. So the guard is kind of down here south of Ligny Creek. We're going to get some of our guns moving up and try to use those to, soften up a little bit the center. But really what the guard's been doing is kind of moving up along, this side here, along the Saint Amand side of things, where we've got at least some cover from the cultivated hexes. And then we're going to see if we can't kind of turn the Prussians from the east, or from the west, I should say. So we have to kind of see how things develop in that regard. We did manage to clear out all of Saint-Amand-le-Château. We still have a couple of these special structures who have a few people left in them. But here within another couple of turns, we'll have eliminated the last of the Prussian defenders, and we'll have all of the Saint Amans taken care of. Now, meanwhile, I've got a division and then another division kind of moving up here towards Wagenly and into this area here north of the Saint Amans. So that's sort of the next objective over here on the French left wing. We will be rolling for reinforcements. There is a portion of the First Corps that will show up. I think it's just a division and maybe a little bit of maybe 1 or 2 light cavalry at best. It was either going to show up here, on the west side of the map, or it might show up further north here along the, closer to this main highway. In which case, then we could use it to come down onto the Prussian flank here, onto the Prussian right flank, down in this area. So we'll kind of see, we have to roll to see where it shows up. But that's the other sort of reinforcements that's there. The Prussians do have some elements of their Fourth Corps that are coming in, and those are showing up way up here in the northern part of the map, and they usually get just maybe a brigade of cavalry or a brigade of infantry. They have to roll for that at the top of each hour. So that's kind of where things stand as far as reinforcements go and the general disposition of the units. We've had a couple of times where we've been pretty close to putting the Prussians on a level, and then they end up having some absolutely brilliant recovery rolls, and they just miss out on on hitting a level. So we're hopefully here with the 5 o'clock hour looming. This coming turn, we'll see if we have any luck, and we're able to maybe get a result that could become a favorable for the French, and maybe get the Prussians on a level. That would be very helpful, particularly as we're still struggling for control of the little town of Ligny itself at the moment. So that's kind of where things go here at Ligny, and we'll wrap it up here. We've been going for about an hour, and I guess it's 31-6. Well, I guess that has got to be the Cowboys are doing well. So good job to whomever. Anybody else have any questions? This is your opportunity to post them. Otherwise, I wish you the best of luck. If you have any suggestions on tutorials you'd like to see, let me know. Mark Rogelio, who's up in Northern California, who's been getting into the La Bataille, had asked me to do a tutorial on how to use skirmishers. So I'm in the process of working on that. And if there's any other specifics that you guys would like to see, either with 5th edition rules or any other sort of rule set, let me know, and I'd be happy to do that. Let's see, we got one last question. What settings do you use for the Vassal modules? So as far as the settings go, usually the ones that I do is I usually turn off the center on the unit that my opponent is moving. Particularly when you're playing a team game like this, somebody on the other side of the map could be moving his units, and then suddenly your view just jumps over there. So that would be one that you might want to turn off. If you're just playing the game with one other person, then that's not a bad one to keep on. So that way then whatever he's moving, you know where it is, because the map will move you to that spot, and then you can watch the unit move around. As far as other settings go, I don't know. I don't really mess very much with the settings. I'm kind of using them whatever's kind of out of the box. So the only thing that I did turn off was that sort of center on your opponent's, moving unit, because it got to be. It doesn't work if you're doing a team game, um, uh, and so that's the only thing that I've sort of turned off. Otherwise, most of the stuff with Vassal, I'm just doing whatever's right out of the box, for that. Have you changed the cast size to make scrolling smoother? I haven't, and I haven't really had a problem with the scrolling. I don't know as far as what you guys see, with what's going on the map when I'm doing the videos. The one thing that I would really like to have is the mouse wheel, just moves up and down. It moves the map up and down. I would really have preferred if the mouse wheel lets you zoom in and zoom out, instead of clicking on the little plus or minus modification. And so therefore, the mouse wheel would have been nice to have that as a way of zooming in and zooming out. But maybe I'll mention that to somebody. I'll ask Stigler, and he can tell me what to do. All right, so we're getting a note here. I get a decent amount of screen tearing. Shift mouse wheel for left and right. Oh. No. So you're pressing the shift button, and then you press the mouse wheel? No, the mouse wheel is still just going up and down for me. Control mouse for zoom. Nope. No, the control key and the mouse are not zooming. So, well, maybe I'll have to mess around and see what they've got as far as options go. But I am not an expert at Vassal. I just know enough to kind of do it and play. So maybe I'll need to mess around with some of the control stuff a little bit better and see. Maybe just Vassal. Could be. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, VASL. Do you use a regular PC screen or a larger monitor to play in Vassal? So I do have a larger monitor, that I got, because I was playing as many Vassal games. And then I ended up getting a second monitor, so that way when I do the live screen stuff, I can see what's going on with the recording software and the live streaming software, and then I could also read your comments. So when I tried having it all on one screen, it couldn't do. So I had to get another one. So my monitor is probably, it's probably about 28 inches wide and 22 inches high, kind of a thing. So it's a pretty decent size. It's not anything that's outrageously huge. But I know that we did have one fella who, when we were doing the Battle of Moskva, he was playing it on a laptop, and for him then that was really hard to see what's going on because the size of the screen was pretty small, and he really had to scroll a lot to see where things were. So having a larger monitor is certainly helpful, so that way you can get a better sense of where things are, and kind of move around. But there are some features with Vassal where you can kind of get, you can kind of see the whole map and whatnot. And so there's ways that you can kind of play with it. Yeah. Weird. Shift and Control mouse key worked for me in MNC. So Shift, Control, and the mouse wheel. Yeah, no. So I think a lot of the Vassal modules, a lot of the different commands that are there are ones that the person who made the module has either included or not. And so depending on what they've used, those command keys for, um, it may or may not be available, um, under the circumstances. So I'll have to tinker around with it a little bit, but yeah, there's some things with Vassal that I like. Um, Obviously you wouldn't be able to play a six-player game virtually across the universe unless you guys had something like Vassal. So, all right, try the ones on the left side. Shift Control. Huh, huh. Oh, it's not Shift Control. It's Control Alt. Oh. So it's Control Alt. So on this module, it looks like Control Alt allows you to zoom in and zoom out using the wheel. All right. Well, thank you guys. That's cool. So I'm using on the left side of the keyboard the Control Alt key and then the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. So very nice. Very nice. That will make things better because it was getting very annoying trying to click on the expand and contract, and then that would jump so much. And I want to try to sometimes get in so you guys can see the details of what's going on with the combat when we're doing stuff. So good. Well, I've learned something new, and hopefully you guys have too. So at least for this module, it's the Control Alt key allows you to use your mouse wheel to zoom in and zoom out. Very nice. All right, anything else before we wrap things up, everybody? All right. Well, if you guys have any suggestions or comments, by all means, feel free to make them on any of my videos. When you guys post a comment to the YouTube comment section, those are then, I get a notice. I get a little note from YouTube, and then I'm able to respond to you. So if you have suggestions for anything or you have questions, go ahead and let me know. And with that being said, I wish everybody a terrific week ahead. We will be hopefully actually playing Ligny next Monday, unless there's some other football game that I have to deal with. If that's the case, then we might schedule the game on a different night to make up for it. Our Battle of Brandywine next Sunday. I have a fencing tournament that I have to help for the high school that I'm coaching. So we might move that to Saturday night instead, depending on the schedule of the other people. All right, ID Jester says, I will teach you Vassal and you teach me Ligny. All right, that sounds like a deal, ID Jester. And Iggy Criddle says, glad to help. Well, thank you. I appreciate Iggy Criddle, your advice, and ID Jester. Yeah, I'll take you up on the Vassal. Because what I wanted to try to do is like actually have a little tutorial on how people can use Vassal for playing La Bataille, and that way then they can get more comfortable with it, because there's lots of people that want to play the game, but you might not have anybody who's in your neck of the woods who can come over. And so with our Discord server, there's the Consim page, there's a really good Facebook group. There's people out there that want to play the game, and so if you're somewhere where you don't have somebody nearby that can play, but you want to do something, then Vassal is a great option for you. So I'd really like to try to maybe do what I can to teach folks how to use Vassal and get comfortable with it. So ID Jester, I might just take you up on that. All right. That being all said, I wish everybody a great evening and stay out of trouble, and we'll go ahead and pull the plug on this affair. Hopefully I'll see you guys at our next gaming session live stream. Otherwise, I've got a couple of videos that are going to be posting soon on some of the games that I got myself for Christmas. So we'll have a couple of unboxing videos coming up here this week. So until the next time, be well, everybody.